Okay, I started the webinar. Hi everyone, great to see you joining. We're going to start in a few minutes. Yaron, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Philip. Thanks. How are you?
Well, not bad. Thank you so much. Folks that join, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from in the comments. And again, for those of you joining just now, we're going to start in a few minutes. Hi, Ravi from San Diego. So those of you joining just now, we're going to wait for a few minutes until we start, and feel free to get yourself some coffee, some sparkling water for those of you that prefer that over coffee like myself. All right, for those of you joining just now, we're going to start in a few minutes. Great to see so many great people from so many different places. Those of you just joining, please say hi and share in the chat and share your name and where you're from. All right, good to see so many people joining, and we're going to start in a couple of minutes. I'll turn off my audio and camera for a second. Hi everyone, and great to see you. We're going to start in 1 minute. So Yaron, what's new on your end?
Just excited to present Know Your Agent. Been thinking about this all day. So nothing more than that. You?
Same thing, but maybe my whole life I was dreaming for this kind of recent
Yeah.
release. I'm just kidding. I was just at a GTC last week, and I got the chance to finally show this after our recent release, and showed it to a lot of people in a short amount of time, and got a lot of feedback. People were pretty excited, so I hope participants today are just as excited. All right. So I see folks have joined, and we're at a couple of minutes after the beginning. So let's start. All right. So I'll start by sharing my screen, and maybe before diving in, let's start with having an initial survey. So we're going to be talking today about the trust layer for Gen AI, and here's our specific title. Today we'll be talking about end-to-end evaluation of complex AI agents. So just to kind of understand who's here with us, so we'll start with some initial survey or a poll, and let's call it, what's the, so I just launched it. You should see it on your screen. The question is, what's the current development stage of your LLM-based application or AI agent? So of course, they're not the same thing, but just to make it easier. So option number one is conceptualization and design, meaning very early on. Then there's development and testing, production and deployment, which I see at least for today is one of the more popular choices, which is really cool. Like I've seen from the initial people answering. And then optimization and scaling means you already have something that's deployed. Now you're trying to reduce costs, make it a lot better, and so forth. But all right, it's actually a very interesting survey for me. And I'll give it a bit of time when I start talking, and then I'll answer. So here you have with me, you have with me over here, Yaron. Maybe Yaron, say hi so no one misses you. However the window's presented to you. Yaron's our head of product at Deepchecks and did a lot of the work, both with me and with other team members on kind of building this. And here you can see this little widget that, for those of you that know us for Deepchecks for a while, you might see in our website. This is kind of what represents a new website. It's kind of the stack. There's some really interesting things that are showing how we build layer upon layer, everything we need until this Know Your Agent. So we're going to try to get pretty technical in this talk. It doesn't mean that you have to have, like code yourself, but we're gonna try to give like a pretty precise explanation for what exactly you're getting, and it's not just gonna be theoretical. All right. So actually, before I dive in for a second, I'll end the poll, and I'll share the results. So we can see here we had 69% participation. And we had, the most popular result was conceptualization and design, was production and deployment, followed by development and testing, followed by conceptualization and design, and then only a couple of people were in optimization and scaling. So really nice to see that. And I think, for me at least, it's probably the first webinar I'm presenting where production and deployment was like the most common, which is really, really special for me to see. And it might have to do with the fact that the topic is a little on the advanced side. All right, so basically I'm going to do the kind of presentation in the beginning, and then we'll move on and do the demo. So basically there are a few different layers that you need to build a Gen AI app. You need the model, of course. You can't really go very far building a Gen AI based app without a model. And in terms of getting external knowledge, I would now, combine that with tool calling and so forth of, get MCPs, external tools, vector databases, external sources, scraping. So anything that has to do with connecting the LLM itself with the external world, that's something else that's, I don't want to say mandatory, but it's so common that it's hard to find a team that's not really using them. And then there's the AI evaluation component, where our claim at Deepchecks is that this is a very, very, very central piece, and it's the area where it's the most easy to get like a 10x difference between, let's call it good practices and suboptimal practices. So when you're building an agent, this is kind of what we observed where agent builders struggle the most. So stalled POCs, what does it mean? Stalled POC, we don't see, it's not so common where management like kills an agent, an AI agent project. What happens a lot more often is that they're kind of, rising. By the way, I didn't mention at the beginning, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A part, and then whoever's not speaking between me and Yoon will kind of manage them, and we'll get to them also. Either we'll answer by writing, or we'll kind of bring it into the talk. So installed POCs, what does that mean? Instead of killing the project, it's just kind of, yeah, you know what, the risk is too high a little. Let's start with a very small subpopulation. Let's do a POC on another use case. So it's not really clear cut that, okay, the project's dead, but de facto it's very similar to dead project when the POC it doesn't get a clear failure, but it's just stalled and kind of gets lengthened. And then the next part is that it's hard to evaluate the agents themselves. So this is the core of what we'll be talking about today. But it's really difficult to test, debug, and so forth when you want to compare versions. When a multi-step agentic workflow. What can happen is the steps can happen in different order. They can happen, you might call the same tool, let's say, many times. So the whole setup is built in a way where it's hard to even find what it means to compare apples to apples. Even when you do have apples to apples, it's really hard to just get a reliable score. And something else that's a little on the harder side is just executives, business partners from the different units that somebody might be working with. It's hard to get them to do that leap of faith and to say, I'm willing to trust this black box with where I don't see what's happening with outcomes that do have large variance, and I will see what's happening. So these are all areas where those of you kind of working on it will notice that some of it might resonate. And if the popular use cases that we saw for agents were these ones up to, I'd say, a couple of years ago, the question answering, summarization, as soon as these are the lowest hanging fruits that kind of came out, in the year, let's say, after ChatGPT came out, or GPT 3.5, depending on who we're asking. So what we're seeing this year is very, very different. So there are agents of every different type, and it doesn't mean that this is the majority of what we're seeing in production, but it does mean that teams that are now spending a lot of time on AI or generative AI, we're seeing that this does take a large amount of their time, a large amount of their focus. This is a lot about what they have to align it with management and so forth. Now, an observation that I didn't really have until recently is when you're working with an autonomous agent, then the number of tokens being used, which is a benchmark for a lot of different things, it helps think about how to deal with all sorts of different issues. It didn't go up like times 3 or 4 like I kind of imagined. It went up from the numbers we're seeing with our customers between, I'd say, 10 times as many tokens to probably more than 50. That's written here, probably to 100 times. We have customers and prospects where one single run of a single iteration working with one of their agents or an agentic workflow of those, I might call them multiple agents, could take 10 or 20 minutes. I mean, it's not for every use case, but it's really significant, a really significant difference. And part of this comes to the fact that you might be calling the tool. Again, you can see here on the screen on the right, I have many different spans or many different steps, as we would call it. And on the left for standard kind of Gen V1 kind of RAG system, then just one step. But part of it I can't explain. Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain exactly why. I think it has to do with the typical type of use case that agents are used for. Maybe because the folks know that they're powerful, they just give them more information. It could be that they're letting them work on different types of documents, but part of it can be explained by the fact that it's multiple turns, and part of it can't. From what I'm seeing, for whatever reason, there's there'll probably be more research done on that. It's just the length exploded. All right, and let's just do some quick napkin math to explain the evaluation problem. So imagine that you have 20 steps. All right, you have what you call a trace, or it could be multiple traces in the same session, but you have 20 different steps. Now, if you, in some cases, when you get even one of them wrong, then the whole thing is wrong, or I would call the whole interaction bad. So if each step you get a 95% accuracy, then it turns out, just from this napkin math, that if we assume that they're statistically independent, then we're getting to 36% accuracy. So this is the kind of this probably is aligned with your intuition when you're playing around with agents that something doesn't work well in a lot of the cases. And now what you're slowly trying to do is get this whole complex system to work. And those of you that have done it know it's very hard, and that's a big part of where we come in. So let's talk a bit about Deepchecks evaluation, and then we'll talk a bit about kind of our product philosophy before you see the demo. So what are we looking at in terms of Deepchecks evaluation? So we have a few different angles for it. So we have at least one customer where the main value that they're getting from us is what has to do with deep evaluation. What does deep evaluation mean? We're trying to simulate what would an intelligent and consistent human annotator, what would they think? Is it a certain interaction good or not good? And how do we do this? We have a whole set of technologies, including the ORION model. Some of you might have seen that we released, including swarm of agents technology, to get to the point where we can give many different insights about what actually happened. In the second phase, I'd call it the auto scoring and insights, where we use some of the techniques we get from the deep evaluation to be able to give a ranking. Bottom line, I have all these different numbers. Bottom line, thumbs up or thumbs down, and to be able to say, here was the problem. This is why we call our platform opinionated. And then in the kind of third area, I would say, the platform is built both for what we call coders and for clickers. It's built in a way that you're supposed to be able to, the technical folks that usually work with us kind of up front, they're supposed to be able to hand off the system to their peers that have a lot of domain knowledge but don't necessarily want to dive deep into Python or other programming languages. So that's a bit about us at the high level. I'll put up the second survey while I'm talking, just to get a little more sense for who's over here, and we'll ask about agentic evaluation. So I know that not everyone here is in agents, and some of you are probably just in classic LLMs kind of thinking about agents, but what I asked here is how you're currently evaluating your agentic workflows. So one of them is building an internal eval pipeline using a third-party SaaS solution, something like Deepchecks, manual evaluation, or nothing yet. I'm just getting started. So those are the different options. I'll leave it up as I'm talking, and then we'll kind of continue. So Deepchecks was recognized as one of the few vendors that works within SageMaker, within something called Partner AI Apps, meaning that I think it's for us, it's amazing to have this trust with AWS. We do have many different deployment options, but this one, for those of you that are on AWS, and there's an option to get Deepchecks within your AWS account, and it feels like and smells like on-prem, except the maintenance is on AWS. And if I just talk at a high level about kind of the business value, so we have significantly shorter time to productions, not for us, for the customers that we're seeing. We have slowly, because of the iterations and the improvement cycles that you'll see through Yaron's demo, we're having a significant decrease in hallucinations, low quality responses, bad tool usage, and so forth. And maybe the metric I'm most proud of is we have about 15 times as many versions compared by our typical customer. So instead of having let's kind of work with the first thing that looks okay-ish to get to the point where you can run many different prompts or many different versions of the agentic setup and so forth, and just kind of see what works best. That's something really unique, and I'm just proud to see customers that have 100 versions and they did a deep dive in the top 2 or 3 compared to which kind of reminds me of the classic AI machine learning where I grew up in. Compared to having the what we call the finger times win. Anyway, so that's the very high level. I'll end the poll here, and I'm sure that you're all in suspense, so I want you to at least to be able to see it. So just sharing the results. So the most common is building an internal eval pipeline. There are open sources, kind of like a Deep Eval and Ragas and so forth, that give at least part of the value. And definitely a significant part of the market is kind of using them as at least a step one, using a third-party solution. I'm really glad to see this. I think I'm sure there are customers of ours here, and I'm sure there are some of the other companies in the space. But it's good to see there's a maturing market, and that some of you are definitely using a SaaS solution. Manual evaluation, It's hard to say kudos for that. I don't think anyone's happy with that status. It's the amount of time per interaction is just crazy. It's gonna, whoever's working on it, it's definitely not going to be maintainable. And the nothing yet, that's also good, and it's good to kind of know in advance. In this space, I like to think about projects that you can work with as test-driven development. That you first define how is something going to be considered a success, and only there get there with actual tooling. All right, so I'm stopping to share this, and yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how our solution works at a high level. So, and after this, I'll pass it on to the more hands-on. So let me start from the different layers that we have of capabilities we have. And again, this is a kind of product philosophy that anyone that might have heard of a pitch of ours even 6 months ago, 4 months ago, you probably didn't see this. So what our claim is today is that to evaluate agents, it's really, really, really hard to kind of put everything into one block. So we really did kind of a divide and conquer technique. And this is kind of the different layers of capabilities. So the most basic layer is having evals. In the first generation after, by the way, are there any questions? All right, I see there's at least one question. Are Deepchecks part of AWS EU Sovereign AI Nuco? I'm not sure I 100% get the question, but Gareth, maybe if you put your email somewhere, send it to one of us and we can contact you afterwards. Another option is to email me specifically at Philip with 1L at deepchecks.com, and we'll do our best to answer you. Anyway, I'll write answer live here just so it's not it doesn't stay here. Anyway, so the first layer of a technique called LLM as a judge, that I'm sure most of you know, where you tell one LLM, you give one LLM, here's the output of another LLM. Did that work well? That was kind of the first naive approach. What happened over time is that many companies and vendors kind of split it into different evals, where each eval works in kind of a different space. So that was phase one. Phase two is kind of saying, you know what, we want to improve the compute on them. We want to be able to have multi-step. So that's what we did in kind of building Orion. It's similar to the LLM evaluation solution, but except some of the things here are done with our own proprietary small language models that are designated specifically for evaluation, and that's what you can see here on this slide. We have an archive paper that's kind of highlighting how we do this specifically for a property called grounded in context, which is checking for hallucinations. But the idea is when you see in the demo, you'll just see a few dozen metrics that kind of you get out of the box, where each one of them it's pretty heavy on compute, and you're getting pretty accurate numbers, but they are individual numbers. And a lot of times people kind of stop there and say, here's my Swiss Army knife, I have different numbers, and then they work with their favorite number. But what we built on top of that is something called the swarm of evaluators. The swarm is something that looks like this, and the idea is, you'll also see this within the system, instead of leaving each one of these numbers as kind of an individual entity that you have to interact with, we aggregate them to say, wait, bottom line, was a certain interaction good or not good? Or if you have, in the kind of agentic workflow, it'll be more complex. But here we're talking about for one span. So let's say I'm just looking at the answers given context that I got from an external vector database. Thumbs up or thumbs down. And that's what I get in one individual swarm. There's something called LLM as a jury that some of you might have heard, which is kind of like the LLM as a judge that I mentioned, except you just give it many times to the same LLM or to different LLMs, and then they have to vote. We also have that within the system. The swarm is not a jury. Each one of the evaluators is looking at something else. Imagine there's you're inspecting a car, so you have one device for looking at the wheels, you have one device for looking at the CO2 emission, whatever, and then you end up aggregating them using this. All right, so these are the two longest explanations. These three layers on top that you see, session level scoring is when I have many phases. So I have an individual swarm for each phase or for each span. I need to have a smart way of aggregating them to save like a whole session. Imagine like a long chat. Did that work well? So I want a bottom line thumbs up, thumbs down for the entire interaction. Then we built a layer of instrumentation on top of this. So to be able to get to this fine-grained understanding what does and doesn't work, instead of having to do a lot of manual work of sending all this to Deepchecks, We built a way where for the few leading frameworks, which include LangGraph, Google ADK, CrewAI, so we can automatically send this. And then we have, so you just put in a little snippet at the beginning of the code, and then we're automatically getting it. And what we just added here, which you'll see in the demo, which is our recent launch that we hope you saw on LinkedIn or other places where we made some noise about it, is Know Your Agent. So when you have an agent, and that's it, you only have the API for an agent, no data yet, you didn't set up anything else and so forth, then we build a way where we can generate scenarios, and we'll run the scenarios through our system, and then the whole flow together, you end up getting, because of all the capabilities I mentioned earlier, you end up getting an end-to-end report saying what's good and what's bad about the system, where we started from pretty much nothing. So this doesn't replace everything else. Most of our customers will typically want to use it both in production or on data that's being used by actual users, and in the Know Your Agent flow where you say, you know what, I just changed, it's a multi-turn chat. I just changed my prompt. Now I don't have any new data, and now they want to kind of get an assessment if that's good or not. So it doesn't mean that you always need everything in the pyramid to get value, but it's really, I think, special and unique, the fact that this that this is what it looks like, and thanks to Yaron and the entire team that kind of worked on building it. So I know there weren't that many questions yet, which I think is fine, and I'm sure you'll see a lot more during the demo. So Yaron, I think you can take it away, and if there are more questions, then anyone can share it in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Philip. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Just so I know that. Okay, great. So hi, everyone. I'll show you the demo of Know Your Agent. What we'll see now is, as Philip said, like chronologically, we will set a deployment, we'll configure a deployment, we'll create a data set, we will run our data set on our deployed agent, and then we'll see the results, the eval results on Deepchecks. That's like how it will usually work chronologically. But the way I want to present it to you is first to show you the analysis of the data that I already ran on a demo application. And this is because this is the most important part of Know Your Agent, how we analyze and how we evaluate the data. And then in the last few minutes of the demo, I'll show you the like initial three steps. So and again, feel free to ask even technical questions on the chat, and Philip will direct them to me while you ask them. So what you see here is an application. This is the Deepchecks platform. The demo app.
We don't see the screen.
Oh, you don't see? Okay, you don't see my screen. So just a second. Philip, do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what you see here, this is the Deepchecks platform. I'll talk about this in a second. The demo application that we're talking about is a demo application called Academic Researcher. It's a Google ADK demo. You can find it on their GitHub, Academic Research. And what it does, it's an AI-driven agent designed to facilitate the exploration of academic landscapes surrounding seminal research works. So the user would ask for details about maybe a specific research work that was done, and the agent is supposed to give it the user data about that research, maybe future research that should be done about that topic and stuff like that. That's the general idea. So I just took their demo and I logged some samples, some sessions to Deepchecks. By the way, this is a multi-turn demo, so there's not just one turn, one user input and one agent output. There might be a few traces within each session, and again, built with Google ADK. Philip mentioned it for a second, but we have an integration with Google ADK like we have for LangGraph and LangChain and CrewAI and others. So this was automatically uploaded in runtime to Deepchecks by just a few lines of code. So what you see here is we have 44. I ran 44 sessions. I want to go over just a single session to show you how this looks. So let's take, I don't know, this one, for example. You can see a pretty long session with 30 spans in it. It includes, in this case, 3 traces. You can see that great observability. You can see that the first input was analyzed deep. The user asked to analyze deep learning by et cetera, and probably the model, the agent probably had some clarification questions or stuff like that. Now I'll search for recent papers. We had another trace, and in the end, the user asked for suggest research directions for applying deep learning, and the last output that the framework that the application gave. You can see that traces have a few agents that they can use. They have an academic coordinator that, in its turn, can call two different agents. In this case, I can see in the last trace, I can see that it only called one, the academic new research agent, but maybe in the second trace, it also called here academic web search agent. So it called both agents. So here you can see how you can see the whole session, how it went. You can see for each, I'll just show you an example. Here we can see call LLM, which is the initial LLM step of this academic coordinator. We can go and see exactly what the input and output and full prompt were, each message within the full prompt. And you can see the different properties, quality metrics, in this case, instruction following, reasoning integrity, for example, which were pretty good at 1 to 5. They got a 5, no issues found with reasoning integrity. And in instruction following, the assistant correctly invoked academic web search. So it was pretty good. We can also see sessions metrics here. So in this case, you can see that intent fulfillment of the whole session was pretty bad. Got a 2. So we have both span level metrics and session level metrics, and they're visible, I think, in a very convenient way. Over here, you can see LLM calls, agents, tool calls, etc. So this is when you want to explore a single session. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention it, but you can also see system metrics for each span. So in this case, in the LLM, the tool call had this and this latency. The LLM call had latency and this amount of tokens and cost. So I would say a great observability and a great place in the UI to see those different metrics with their reasoning. So that's that for, I would say, the single session.
Yo, in just 1 second, there are a few questions I want to
Yeah,
address here.
go ahead.
So, first of all, there was a question if the webinar will be recorded, if a recording can be sent out. So, of course, we always like to send out the recording to webinar participants, and we always add a wrong fact somewhere in between just so that you have incentive to watch live. But anyway, about the question about how do we evaluate agents developed using non-developer tools such as Gemini Enterprise or Cloud Cowork or so forth. So given a use case where something's built with something like drag and drop and so forth, and there is a way to get it to work. So I think this is for Babul. Babul, if you'd like to connect, then you can reach out to the same email I gave. I'll also have it at the end. Philip with 1L at deepchecks.com. We'll find a way. There are ways to do it. It really depends if it's a deep agentic framework and we might need a deeper integration, or if you can send something with something that feels like an SDK, but there are ways to handle it. And then maybe I'll just share a bit about, I mean, there were a couple of questions about competition. Maybe, Yaron, you can stop sharing here for a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Things like Rise, LangFuse, and so forth. So I'll share here a bit. I think there are some of the other companies that call themselves LLM evaluation. They do some pretty amazing stuff, and there are some things that are some areas which some areas of capabilities that they have that we don't. I think one of the things when we look at this vision where we say kind of know your agent, being very opinionated, telling you what works and what doesn't work and what's broken. I hope you'll see this at the next part of the demo. So most of our competition will be focused at this layer. It doesn't mean that they don't have other capabilities. There are a lot of other capabilities that aren't in this pyramid. So like production monitoring. We also offer production monitoring, but some of the other companies have like a really deep kind of dive into that. There are others that are like very deep into showing you insights about latency and cost and so forth. Usually when there's like a smaller team kind of place, and maybe they just might have something that looks just like this, like some of the more basic open sources in the space. I don't want to name anyone by name, but the kind of, this tech stack that gets all the way to the point where you say, you know what, here's an agent, tell me everything about it if it's good or not. I think we have a very unique positioning within the market, and I think that's a high level. There are more questions. I don't want to cut your own flow off too much, so feel free to continue to ask questions, and I'll bring it up with the answers as we go forward. And of course, if you have questions that have to do with what Yaron's showing right now, then you'll get priority.
Okay, great. Thanks, Philip. I'll reshare my screen. Sorry, not this. Right. Okay. Great. So we went over the single session view. By the way, one thing that I didn't show, Philip talked about the auto scoring per span. So here you can see, let's say, for example, the auto scoring per the web search tool was good. And for this last LLM, it wasn't. We got a bad annotation. Why? We had this logic, this decision tree logic, which in this case says that if the reasoning integrity or the instruction following is low, please give a bad annotation. So just to show that in the UI. Next thing, let's say I want to start analyzing my whole version, my whole pipeline. I can go to my sessions list, see the whole list, sorted by annotations, filter it by different things. For example, in this case, I want to filter it by the intent fulfillment property metric, and I want to sort it. I want to see the bad ones first. So here you can see a bunch of sessions that had got a bad score on intent fulfillment. Or I can do the same thing for yeah.
One question that you got that is if you can explain the difference between a trace and a session.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that in a second. No problem. Thanks. And I can do the same filtering and sorting by system metrics, the system metrics that we have on the platform. Again, of course, if logged by the user, and with our integrations, they're logged automatically, but latency, total tokens, input tokens, output tokens, and cost. So I can, for example, please show me the session with the highest cost, and then we can start analyzing why it had such a high cost. In this case, $50. Okay, cool. I'll just answer the question, what the difference is between a trace and a span. So this doesn't have to do with deep checks. It has to do with how LLM workflows work in general, and especially agentic or complex workflows. I would say a trace is a single run of your pipeline, of your application's pipeline. Each trace. So, for example, if I go into this session and I collapse, wait, sorry for that, and I collapse these. Here you can see in this case I have 7 traces because the pipeline ran 7 times because every time the user had a different, I don't know, follow-up question or clarification or something like that. But each trace, each run of the pipeline was constructed of many, many spans. A call to an agent, an agent calls a tool, the tool searches the web, and then the agent calls an LLM, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a different general difference between a trace and a span. Again, this isn't natural to deep checks. It's how complex LLM frameworks work. So that's that. After we saw the sessions list, I want to show you the crown jewel of the Know Your Agent analysis, and that's our overview screen. What you see here is an effort to show you as a user the general performance and problems or failure modes of your pipeline. So what you can see here is you see the scores, the aggregated scores of each level. So my whole version got a score of 16%, which is pretty bad. I can go over the different agents. So in this case, I can see that the academic web search agent is the one underperforming. Okay, we'll deep dive into that in a second. I can see that my LLM calls, my reasoning calls are also at 50%. They're also pretty much underperforming. My tools are actually doing pretty good. Web search is at 99%, barely any mistakes when problems when actually searching the web. So this gives us a pretty high level understanding of what's good enough or not good enough with our pipeline. We can check one thing I want to show you here. We can look at the trace level and see the system metrics, aggregated system metrics on our trace levels. So for example, I can see here already just by looking at this for a second, I can see that I have some problems here. I have a trace that took 5,000 seconds, which is a lot. I can try to deep dive into that specific trace and understand why it took so long. Okay, that's one example. Another example, I see that there's a trace that had 0 input tokens, probably 0 LLM calls, which is also a problem. This helps me just by observability, looking at system metrics helps me understand some failure modes, probably technical failure modes of my pipeline. Then I can see that the academic web search agent, which had 71 spans, had a performance of 24%. That's pretty bad. I want to fix that, understand why and fix that. So I can click on it. Again, I can see the system metrics and I can see the properties, the quality metrics. I see they're really bad, between 1 to 5. I can choose each one of them that I want to analyze, let's say tool coverage in this case, and ask to get, first of all, I can change it to a graph view, okay? I can also change these system metrics to graph views to see where the average is, the median, etc. But I can also generate a failure mode analysis or a failure mode report to understand why tool coverage and see also examples why tool coverage is so bad for academic web search agents. So I'll click on analyze failures. I'll wait probably 10, 15, 20 seconds at most, and I'll get a very elaborate failure mode analysis of tool coverage for this web search of this agent specifically. So you can see here different categories of failure. In this case, incomplete retrieval of required papers and metadata. I have a few other categories. We won't go over them right now. There's a description of this failure mode and some examples. I can click each one of them and see the exact example with specifically tool coverage and what wasn't good enough with tool coverage here. So this gives us an elaborate, high-level understanding of what's not good enough tool coverage-wise with our agent, with a great ability to deep dive into examples and try to fix it later. Last thing I want to show you is the ability to generate our built-in insights. So I would go into Academic Web Search Agent, which isn't good enough. I will generate some insights. I'd wait probably a few seconds, and I will get some built-in insights that we built. In this case, inefficient planning. I can understand what the problem is, some suggestions on how to fix that in my pipeline, and again, view the data that's problematic in this case. So really cool stuff here that really helps us in I would say a few minutes understand where we're underperforming and which agent and which tool and which LLM call or what traces we're underperforming, both technically with system metrics and quality-wise with our different quality metrics, I would say. Oh, so again, that's the crown jewel of Know Your Agent, the ability to very quickly understand what's not good enough or what's underperforming in our pipeline. Philip, are there any questions about that before I move to the initial parts of Know Your Agent?
So there were a lot of questions, but I tried to answer a lot of them live. So those of you that had a question and answered in the chat, see if I already answered it. I'll try to get back, and then maybe at the end of when we're out of time or when we're finished with the regular demo flow, then we'll answer live the other questions.
Okay.
Yeah. In any
Great.
case.
Last thing I want to show here is
Oh,
the ability.
actually, Yaron, maybe one question I didn't understand. A question from Naveen KM. Hi there, Naveen. Can you please elaborate on the intent evaluation? Are you relying on the in-house trained SLMs? What about security issues like indirect
Okay.
prompt injection?
Okay, got it. So I won't go into security issues here. We can talk about that elaborately later. But specifically, I think that what you're talking about, Naveen, is when I showed before, I showed the specific property, the specific quality metrics on the session level called intent fulfillment of the whole session. So you can read on our documentation or hear a short description of how intent fulfillment works. Specifically, we do have SLM quality metrics. Specifically, this session level metric is LLM based. So we have a research-backed prompt that gets this score and gets this reasoning for intent fulfillment. So in this case, it's LLM based. But we do have, again, many SLM quality metrics. Great. So that's that. I do want to show that's one more thing on the overview, which is really cool. When going, we call it Know Your Agent and not Know Your Pipeline, because we do give, I would say, enhancements for the specific agent view. So if I go into Academic Web Search Agent, besides the ability to generate on-demand reports or insights, I can also see the subcomponents of this agent. So the subcomponents across all runs of this agent were one tool, the web search tool, which performed really well and had 300 executions, and 172 executions of this call LLM span. So you can see call LLM, as you can see here, was called 478 times, but only 172 executions were specifically done by this agent. So if I want to deep dive not on the whole call LLM span, but on the call LLM span specifically called by this agent, I can, of course, do that. I can deep dive into that, the quality metrics, the system metrics, and of course also generate a report about the failure modes of this specific subcomponent of that specific agent. So it's super granular to try to answer any question about your pipeline that you have. Great. So last thing I want to show you, I'll show it on a different application, a single turn
One
application.
second, Johan,
Oh yeah,
maybe another couple of questions we got here.
yeah,
So Oz asked, do we have plugins or CLI to interact with Claude? So that's one question.
yeah. Not yet, but it's definitely on our roadmap for the upcoming months.
And
So we will have.
you're lucky to have asked our head of product here. You also got a +1 for that question from Justin. So that's good to know there's interest here. It is on the roadmap in any case. Another question from Naveen again is what's the latency of the scan
Was the latency of the of
of the
eval of
scan
the
of running this? Yeah.
oh, of running this. So depends on how many quality metrics and which type of quality metrics we want. But I ran this. You're asking the right person because I ran this these 44. Yeah, I went into a different application, but uh, I ran these 44 sessions, and you could see some of them are very long sessions. I ran them earlier today, and once the sessions were uploaded to Deepchecks, it took tops 10 to 15 minutes for all of these evaluations and scores to already appear on the UI and for me to start analyzing them. So I guess yeah, so pretty quick for again a whole version of the pipeline, 44 sessions, and that's a lot, especially multi-turn.
Maybe I'll share something about this. So in deep checks, I think there are some other players where we talked about some of the advantages and disadvantages where a lot of what you get from them is having something very, very lightweight to the point of like very kind of guardrail-y, kind of real time, can be on your phone type systems. Deep checks is a bit more about saying, okay, let's analyze it, do a deep dive and tell you what works, what doesn't work, what are the issues about it. So for classic RAG examples, when we benchmarked it, it was usually when we would run like 40 different models on it and run the swarm technique, we would usually be at, for a typical sample, we would be at less than 1 second per interaction. And then, of course, from the slides I showed at the beginning, the number of tokens in some of these agentic use cases is so much higher that there's a large dependency both on how many tokens you have per significant per individual session, and then also about how many different judges are you running, how many of those judges are SLM based, how many of them are LLM based. So there are a few different variables here, but in many of the use cases, just because of the nature of the problem, then there's usually sampling done up front, and in correct usage of our tool, then it's not usually done on every interaction.
Cool. I will add one more thing that I didn't say before, but super important. All the metrics, the properties that you saw here are built-in properties, research backed. Again, some of them SLM, some of them LLM based, but all of them research backed with sophisticated context engineering. But in addition, all our users can always add their own. For example, here on the span level, can add their own prompt LLM as a judge prompt property. So in this case, it's very simple to add some guidelines, play with it, test it a bit, and add your own LLM as a judge metrics in addition to our built-in research-backed ones. So just important to say that.
All right, Yaron, I'm going to ask you another question. By the way, for me, this is such a fun webinar. We're getting we're getting both more questions and more advanced questions than usual. So it's really fun to see that there's engagement, know-how, and to me, it's showing that the surveys at the beginning weren't BS and that they actually exist, and so it's really fun to see this, and hope to collaborate with many of you down the line if you liked what you saw here. So Mirko asked, what is that important in knowing which agent is underperforming? Shouldn't be more valuable as an insight knowing how to set the prompt or other variables properly?
Okay, because in most of the frameworks, at least the ones that and Philip, maybe you can also elaborate on this, but in most of the frameworks, let's say Google ADK for an example, or CrewAI as an example, you give definitions for the agent. Let's say an agent role, an agent goal, some extra description for the agent, some context, but the agent is the one determining the system prompt. The agent is the one determining when to call which tool and when to call an LLM. So the better the user knows how to define the agent, which tools to give to its disposal, etc., the better the performance within the agent will be. So, for example, in the example that I just showed you, I have the new research agent. This is the coordinator, so I won't talk about it for a second. But new research agent and web search agent, new research agent was probably configured with a better agent, a more clear agent role. Better tools were given to its disposal than web search agent. And if I look at all agents at once, that doesn't give me a granular enough or a good enough a place to start to understand where to fix my pipeline. Here, I see that web search agent is the one with the problems. And if I understand where the problem is, it's very easy for me to go to the agent description or the agent role or agent goal and fix something, maybe even very small in the agent role for this or adding a specific tool for this performance to go up significantly.
Yeah, you literally have the thumbs down breakdown on the right. You can click on one of them, right? Just to, you can see, wait, where were the problems with plan efficiency? And then you get the samples that gave it a thumbs down because of plan efficiency. All right. So there are more. There are more questions here. I see there.
Philip, let's maybe take
But
one
let's.
more question, and then I want to show the last part of the flow.
Yeah, I think actually you can take the last part of the flow now, and then we'll add questions
Okay.
as the time enables.
Great. So what we showed you now was actually the last part of the flow chronologically. So all the data is already from the runs is already uploaded, and now we showed you the analysis both on the single interaction or single session view and on the overview. But now I want to show you, like, let's say the chronologically the first part of the of Know Your Agent. Let's say we have a case of we have an application. So the LangGraph travel agent demo, that's our application. I won't show you it on. You can also find this on the LangGraph GitHub. Uh, but let's say I have this application, but I don't have any data. The case that I just showed you in Google ADK, I ran the data. So I had 44 sessions prepared. I had the data. But right now, I wrote an application, travel agent demo, and I don't have any data. And I want to start understanding, and it's difficult for me to get production data or something like that. And I wonder and understand initially how my application performs just by bringing my application, by bringing zero data, zero prepare traces. What can I do? So here we have a pretty cool a flow that takes only a few minutes in order for you to get started to upload your first AI generated inputs, run them through your generate your inputs, run them through your deployed agent, and then get them up here to Deepchecks and start exploring them like I just showed you. So what will we
But
do?
but
First thing
but
we'll
but,
do.
but Yaron, I'll just butt in here. The way Yaron mentioned it, it might sound like it's for beginners or early on in the phase. For some cases like multi-turn and so forth, you're going to continuously do this for every new version, and even when you're at very advanced stages.
Exactly.
Because it's this semi-simulated data. You'll see we're only simulating the what one side anyway.
Yeah. So what we'll do here, in this case, I have, let's say I have this agent, travel agent deployed. So I'll add this deployment. I'll connect my deployed agent, in this case, to my Deepchecks application. So I did this already here, so it won't take time during the webinar. I call this deployment a demo agentic workflow. What does this deployment include? So I gave this just a generic name, demo agentic workflow. I gave the dev endpoint. So this is the endpoint getting post requests from Deepchecks. And I added my authentication token so I can actually talk with my deployed travel agent. So that's the first thing I did. Second thing I did, I gave my application a description because when I want to generate data, I want to generate it not based on what my application is supposed to do. So in this case, a LangGraph travel planning agent designed to demonstrate Deepchecks evaluation metrics. It has three tools: weather, restaurant, attractions, but is prompted blah blah blah. So I won't go over the whole thing, but you understand the idea. So that's the first thing. I deploy my agent and connect it to my Deepchecks application. Second thing is I'll generate data. So what do I do here? I'll add a data set. Let's call it new data set. You can choose single turn or multi-turn. In this case, because travel agent demo is a single turn demo. So I'll choose single turn and I will generate some, I can add manually or upload data from a CSV or JSON. In this case, I want to show you how to generate my first inputs by AI. So I'll create it. I'll go to agents. I see my application description that I already configured. Let's say I have no guidelines. Usually I will, of course. And in this case, I only want to generate 3 samples because we want it to go quickly. And I'll generate it. It'll take probably 10, 15, tops 20 seconds. And I will get my freshly generate a data set called new data set with these three data points. Okay, we can go over them. These are again, these are tailor-made for my application. The more I would be as accurate as I would be in the application description, the more tailored my data set would be. Last thing that I do is I can go to simulations and then I can run my data set through my deployment. So the deployment we configured together is demo agentic workflow. The data set we built was new data set. It's single turn. And let's say I want the data, the run data that goes through my pipeline to be logged via instrumentation to V2, just to show you that I'm telling the truth. If I go to versions, I go to V2, you can see it's empty. Okay, I didn't upload anything to here yet. So simulations, again, demo agentic workflow, new data set. I want the results to be logged to version 2. I click run, and then you can see I'm running these 3 samples. It took less than a second to start running them. Each one of them got status 200 accepted, travel planning workflow started. And then if I go back to version 2, you can see that sessions are starting to be uploaded to Deepchecks with the system metrics and everything. And then you start working, as we showed before, with our analysis tools, from the single session or single interaction to the overview, and get everything you need. And it was that easy to connect my deployed agent, to create initial data, run it through my deployed agent, and get initial results to start exploring, find failure modes, fix them until I'm confident enough to start investing time, money, or even going to production with it. So that's, I would say, the first steps of Know Your Agent. Philip, any interesting questions that we should address now?
There are many. Let's try to cram in as many as we want, as many as we can really quickly. Declass, can I isolate and run evals on a single tool / skill span without triggering the full pipeline?
So that is a feature that we are implementing this sprint, and will be available in, I think, a week from today. So yes, the answer is yes.
All right, but I'll just share. Most of the time, you don't really have that much of a need to do that. But yeah, in any case, there are edge cases where it does make sense. So we answered that one live. Ravi Sinj is asking if sorry if I didn't pronounce your name right. Is asking if we support OpenTelemetry.
The answer is yes, we do. We have our own package that uses both OpenTelemetry and OpenInference, which logs extra data, but we can also support data from only OpenTelemetry. It is less elaborate. We get less attributes, like you see here, from OpenTelemetry alone, but the answer is yes.
All right. Other questions? So there were a few questions. If Deepchecks has MCP support. So...
yeah, so as I said before, it was part of the CLI question.
Right,
this
exactly.
is on our roadmap for the short term.
Right, so this does not yet exist, but it should. And there was a live discussion here, so I'll take a print screen and have you see it also afterwards. Now, last question from Naveen, I think. I don't see skills being flagged. Are skills considered as tool calls too?
If in this case, if you don't see skills here, this is because the what you see here, let's say the icons that you see here are equivalent to what we call span kinds in the OpenTelemetry or OpenInference. So this is what we get from the instrumentation. If you see a tool here and you don't see a skill, this is because the data was uploaded. Here you can see, I guess here, OpenInference span kind. It was a tool to begin with. If it would be uploaded as a skill, you would see something else here and not a tool. But in this case, all the spans that you see, both on the Google ADK demo and in this LangGraph demo, the spans were logged as tools and not as skills. So we show them as tools too.
All right. So I think we're at time. There are more questions. Oz wrote, great improvement from last year. It's so fun to have people continue to see what we're doing, what we're building. Again, I wrote my email here in the comments. Maybe I'll just share kind of a little more explicitly. So you saw it in action. So we did what we promised. Just to share, when folks want to start working with us, the way it usually works is we first kind of understand, wait, if we're working together, what will the deployment look like? What does the plan look like? We'll start off by either running with an agentic workflow of your own, or with kind of external data that could be exported. We'll do like a white glove implementation of an evaluation pipeline. We'll show you what the issues that we find are. We'll show you what it looks like in the system. And only then you have to kind of make a go, no-go decision. So it's built in a way that's really, usually you'll get value already in this, what we call POV process, and most of the work is done on our side. So it's a pretty good deal. And then, just again, I'm putting my email here. We like to say, with great AI comes great responsibility. So happy to collaborate with anyone here, and feel free to reach out. All right. Thanks, everyone.